Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's December the 11th, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined this morning by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, and the man in the middle today, Sytephen Wagner, as we discuss the news of the day. And it's like Hollywood Squares, man, the way we like move them around and stuff. It's pretty cool. News of the day today is presented by Caneswear, your holiday destination for all your Canes gear for your friends, your family members, your significant others, your pets, whoever could benefit or needs Canes gear for the holidays. Caneswear is your place to get it. You can go to their store at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, or you could shop them 24 hours a day at caneswear.com. Still plenty of time to get in for the holidays, and we'll talk more about Caneswear later in the show. But right now, man, it's 9 days, I guess, to the early signing day. Amazing, Stephen and Matt. We've been like chasing these kids, following recruiting for all these months, going on 11 plus months now, and the moment is approaching, and you could kind of feel the tension. Who's going to be Miami's quarterback? We think that should develop this week. We'll see what happens there. And then what will the fallout be of that? Will that help Miami recruit somebody like a Jeremiah Smith, for example, if he likes the quarterback bonanza that comes out of the portal? We'll see who that ends up being. And then, as we talk to some of these kids, we see even more drama. And that brings me to you, Stephen. You had a conversation on Sunday with Kavion Broussard. He has been a Miami commitment for several months now. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, somebody predicts last week that he's going to go to Ole Miss. And, he's still considering Missouri. And there's open speculation 10 days away from signing day that maybe Kavion Broussard will not be a Miami Hurricane as we have expected for so long. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I will say I do think at the end of the day, Kavion Broussard ultimately is going to be a Cane. I do think he will sign with Miami. But whenever I had the chance to talk to him, he stopped short of saying that, he had fully shut down his commitment, or I'm sorry, that he had fully shut down his recruitment, or that he was 100% committed, or anything like that. I obviously the elephant in the room whenever I talked to him was, hey, so someone put in a prediction for you to flip to Ole Miss. What do you think about that? And obviously Missouri is another program that's been pushing for him like pretty hard too. And so I asked him, are Ole Miss and Missouri still in the picture? Just, what do you think about those two schools? And he told me, I think they're still doing a good job. I think Missouri and Ole Miss are still in there. They definitely are still in the picture. But just how much in the picture they are was, it was a little bit harder to tell because it felt like he was being, fairly intentionally vague whenever he was discussing just specifically what his recruiting picture is looking like. Because right now, we know that he is going to go ahead and take his official visit to Miami this coming weekend. And it looks like Miami definitely is still the leader. But will he take visits to Ole Miss and Missouri before signing day? Well, that's kind of the question. We're all kind of wondering, well, will he? And I asked him, and he goes, it's pretty much to be determined. I don't have anything scheduled right now, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible or that it flat out won't happen. So right now, this is kind of a situation that I'm keeping a little bit of an eye on, but at the end of the day, I'm not overly concerned that he is going to go ahead and go somewhere else because, I mean, at this point in the fall, every single recruit on every single in every single commitment class in America, as far as all of these recruiting staffs are concerned, everyone is talking to everyone else, just like every recruiting staff in America is trying to poach kids from every other school in America. This is something that definitely goes both ways. This is something that, we'll definitely keep a light eye on, although I do think Miami should still be viewed as the heavy favorite here.
Yeah, you absolutely hit it right on the head, man. It's like this is the time where everybody messes with everybody, and it gets a little wild. I've always called this affectionately the fog of war, which usually comes next weekend, but it's coming a little bit early in dribs and drabs this year. But listen, this is nothing new. Matt Shodell, like not the first rodeo. You've covered recruiting for decades here at CaneSport, to the point where after the fog of war last year, you were screaming at me over the phone, God damn it, go get Sytephen Wagner and bring him here from Texas so that he can deal with this bullshit the week before signing day, and I don't ever have to do it ever again in my life. So there he is, Matt. He's to your right. Sytephen Wagner, who happily is enjoying this trip through the fog of war, is getting very stimulated by it and excited about it and uncovering scoops by the minute. Obviously, no surprise to you.
Look, covering recruiting sucks. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It used to be fun. It's like college football has become now. College football has been turned on its head, and we have fans at on the CaneSport boards that are saying it's not as much fun anymore, and they're not wrong. You need to reward players monetarily. I agree 100%. But at what expense? Because the NCAA has so convoluted things with the transfer portal opening up right before bowl games. So every team loses 20 players, loses its best quarterback.
I know.
No, it's insane. It's become insane. Like if you're a fan of a college football team, the end result of the entire season is the bowl game. That's what you're shooting for. It's the best possible bowl game. Like that's the goal for everybody, whether that's in a playoff bowl game or a regular bowl game. And to see, 20% of your roster gone for what's the most important game is silliness. And, recruiting has become silliness. I know it's entertainment and it's always been entertainment, but at its root core, it was always about a team getting them the best possible quality players for the program for the next 3 to 5 years. But now it's no longer 1-year renewable contracts for the college team. It's a 1-year renewable contract for the player. And that's how they view it. These players can go whenever, wherever, to whoever that they want. And it's not enjoyable to cover anymore because it used to really be more about covering recruiting for God knows how many years I did it, and I don't want to do it anymore. That Gary's 100% right. So Sytephen, I'm glad you're doing it. You're doing a great job, but I have zero interest in covering recruiting anymore, and this is just the truth because it used to be about a player who was in love with the program. It used to be about coaches at that program telling that player, if you come here, here's what we're going to do to make you a great person, a great student athlete, and hopefully somebody who can make a career eventually living your best life in the NFL with a really good education, understanding how the world works and different, not just football, right? Things outside of football that are really, really important. And it's no longer become that. It's become, backdoor contracts, backdoor promises. There used to be bags. I get it. There used to be bags, whatever. And there still are bags, people. That hasn't gone away. But this whole contract aspect, and everyone has a lawyer now, and an agent and an advisor, and you got to work your way through the weeds. And I do not envy Mario Cristobal, who I think is the greatest, and I've said it before, the greatest head coach recruiter in the country. But I do not envy him, not just having to recruit players every year, but recruit his own team every year. I don't know how you do that. When you get to the level Mario wants to get to, the top of the top, I don't know how much money it's going to cost to keep that team together year after year, but it's going to be a lot. And when you're a private institution, and I was talking with someone else about this the other day. Like, for instance, somebody I talked to someone who has ties to Tulane, and they're very in with that program. A booster at the program said that, they think Michael Pratt's going to transfer, right? He's not in the portal, but he's going to transfer. And, Tulane's not a program with a lot of money, right? And obviously you can't compare Tulane to Miami. But when you compare, if you did compare Tulane to Miami, you'd say, okay, Miami has a lot more boosters, a lot more money. fan base with bigger amounts of money they're willing to give to the football program. It's like comparing to Miami to Ohio State or to Alabama. Like, there's a huge amount of these universities with 10,000, undergraduates or whatever it is, 20,000 undergraduates, right? That are all eventually going to become boosters of a sense, because all you got to give is $10 to a program, you're considered a booster. That's the truth. And if everybody gives $10 to their own college team, Miami's going to be in the bottom of the NIL barrel. Now, Miami's lucky that they have some big pocketed donors who are giving massive amounts to NIL. Will they do it forever? Because that's what they have to do at Miami. At other schools, they don't have to do that because they have such massive amounts of fan base. So I do not envy Mario whatsoever. I am fearful for what college football is and has become. I'm fearful for what recruiting is and has taught these young men to be in the world, and how their value now is monetary and not as a person anymore. And I don't like it. And good luck to you, Stephen, because, I am not about recruiting at all. I love covering football, college football. I still love covering it. Love covering games, love the nuances, the chess match of the game. But I am not in when it comes to covering young people who are out for their money and not for the education in the school, because that's how I was raised to cover recruiting. And it is no longer that.
Well, fortunately, whenever I marched into the fog of war and I got my battle pack, that was actually a fanny pack, it had Tylenol in it, because God knows that this comes with a freaking headache.
Is that a question or a statement? I don't even know. Of course it does.
But doesn't it suck, Stephen? Matt says it sucks, okay? But he's old, he's tired, he's crusty. He covered recruiting for 20-something years.
I used to love covering recruiting. I used to love it. I stopped loving it very recently.
Yeah, Matt and I have been doing this for 20-something years, and it has changed a lot with NIL and all these agents and handlers and everything else, as you well know, because you talk to a lot of those handlers all the time. And, so he thinks it sucks and, has justifiable reason to feel that way. You are completing, on the other hand, your first cycle of a full recruiting cycle with us at CaneSport. And my guess is you're kind of fascinated by it because it's kind of insane and probably kind of fun to cover.
I've been fairly fascinated, not only because, yes, you're correct, it is insane and it is kind of fun to cover, but I've also been fascinated by the amount of influence that some people believe that I have directly, as in the amount of parents of, Joe Bob Smith over at, John F. Kennedy High School, name a random high school, who comes up to me and says, "Oh, hey, you working on 3, so you can get my kid stars, right? You can go ahead and get them ranked, right? Like, you have that direct ability." And no matter how many times that I say, I personally have zero control over the rankings, that I personally am not consulted whenever they ask, "Hey, should Jeremiah Smith be considered the number 1 or the number 2 recruit in the country?" People still somehow believe that I, Stephen Wagner, will be the answer to why little Joe Bob Smith at John F. Kennedy High School has not been recruited by a single Power 5 program. Yes, I will be the one at the end of the day who is somehow able to fix all of these woes. But you are right, Gary. It has been really interesting and it has been really fascinating, because to see the way that a lot of these recruitments have come together, and some of them we have been able to talk about, others we haven't. Like Justin Scott, for instance. It looked like things were going very, very, very well for him back in late May and early summer. And I put in an RPM, and it seemed like that was a very smart prediction at the time, because we felt really good about this. I remember, talking to you and saying, "Yeah, man, I really think Miami's going to get Justin Scott." Like, we
were like shoving each other aside to get to the RPM machine and get those RPMs in on Justin Scott. And then all of a sudden, boom, he's not going to Miami.
All of a sudden, he's not going to Miami. He's going to Ohio State. He's going to Ohio State instead. But, slowly but surely, Miami plugs away and they plug away and they plug away. And, sooner or later, after 5 or 6 months or something like that after he committed to Ohio State. Miami, all of a sudden, boom, they're right back there in the mix. They're flying high again. They're able to land his recruitment. You've got other guys like, say, Zaquan Patterson, who was actually really, really close to going to Florida State. He was stunningly close to going to Florida State before he went ahead and decided, yeah, Miami is going to be the place for me after all. And you've got all of these teams that are going back and forth for these really major recruits. I mean, throughout weeks and months at a time. This has been something that has been incredibly intriguing, but it also has been something that has caused me to consume probably the most caffeine that I've ever consumed over a 2-week stretch in my life. We're out with Red Bull and Monster Energy. Celsius is the drink that the young kids are pounding these days.
Well, you look over at Matt, and if you notice, and I'm no better, but I'm older than Matt. I'll just say that to preface this. But you notice up here, the hair is really receding, right? And this recruiting stuff was getting to the point where he was it was pulling his hair out. It really was having an emotional, mental, and psychological effect on him. I mean, it really was. I've known Matt for a very long time. I mean, he came to work for CaneSport out of college, just like you, Stephen. And, obviously is at least 3 decades older now. So I think I got that right.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was losing his mind. He's I can't take this anymore. And, so I'm thinking, you know what? We got to go get some young guys that will love this thing and kill it and slay it and everything else. And that's where you and Azubi came in. And yeah, I mean, you guys have done a just absolutely incredible job this entire year, covering all this stuff. But it is interesting. I obviously have been doing this for a long time. So I, like Matt, recognize how different it is. It is totally different. It is absolutely insane. But we've tried to make it fun for all you guys out there, and we hope we've accomplished that. And these last 10 days are going to be something else. So a couple other things happened this weekend that were interesting. Kendall Jackson, who had been committed to Florida, flipped. He decommitted first, and then he committed to Miami this weekend. And Stephen, what your thoughts on that commitment and what it means to the Hurricanes? Your analysis is on the website this morning.
Yeah, so his commitment was something that I think we had a feeling this could happen. This was absolutely a possibility. We knew this a week ago whenever we found out that Miami and Mississippi State were really going to be the two big contenders for Kendall Jackson. The timing, however, did surprise me a little bit. I thought if he was going to flip, it would come sometime this week, not sometime last week, or, right at the end of last week, which was Saturday. But basically what happened here was, he made the decision that, he didn't love the direction that Florida was heading in. There's a lot of chaos over in Gainesville, as many of you well know, and, many of you Canes fans rejoice in. But, things were going south in Gainesville, and Jackson went ahead and decided to go ahead and decommit. He'd been in contact with Miami for a very long time, and Miami had continued to treat him like a priority target, really since he committed to Florida over the summer. Nothing changed from Miami's end. Joe Salavea, I know he's taken a lot of flack, especially on our message boards, as a recruiter, but he deserves a tremendous amount of credit here for maintaining this relationship with Kendall Jackson, the same way that he was able to maintain that relationship with someone like Justin Scott. Joe Salavea was up at FW Buchholz, I believe it was last week, to watch Kendall's playoff game. And this was 24 hours before he made the decision to go ahead and decommit from the University of Florida. So Miami's able to pick up right where they left off. Miami was one of his 3 finalists at the end of June. Whenever he decided initially to go ahead and commit, it was Miami, Florida, and Kentucky at the time. Well, fast forward all these months later, whenever he goes ahead and decides he wants to, totally reopen his recruitment 100% and decommit from Florida. And Miami quickly emerges as one of the top contenders, along with Mississippi State. He's really gravitated toward Miami, toward their coaching staffs, toward Mario Cristobal and Joe Salavea and Jason Taylor. And it really wasn't a very big surprise to us whenever he initially committed to Florida. And quite frankly, I thought it would be pretty hard for him to go ahead and decommit from Florida because not only does he live in Gainesville, he's actually a Florida legacy. His mom went to the University of Florida. His uncle, I believe, is the late Aubrey Hill, another Gator great. And so I just figured that, with all of these connections, it would be damn near impossible for the Gators to find a way to lose Kendall Jackson. But at the end of the day, he decided that the best option for him was to go ahead and reopen his recruitment. And Miami comes in and goes ahead and nabs him. And this is a really good get for Miami. I had a chance to say this on Good Morning CaneSport the other week, but I don't think that Miami's recruiting class is great yet. I think it is very good. I think this is a really good defensive line class, but I don't yet think it's great. I think Kendall takes this class from a good recruiting class to a really good recruiting class, because now you're talking about yet another 4-star defensive lineman with what seems to be a really, really high ceiling who can play both inside and outside coming into this class. I think Miami is one whale commitment away from having a full-blown great recruiting class. And whenever I say a whale, I'm talking like a David Stone, like an LJ McCray, another 5-star plus defensive lineman who can go alongside someone like Justin Scott, someone who has equal to or greater than Justin Scott's recruiting profile. I think that this is definitely a commitment that Miami really, really needed. Miami very obviously needs as much help along the defensive line as they can. And I think Miami being able to get a guy like Kendall Jackson gives them a lot more versatility, because Kendall himself is a guy where you take a look at him and he's about 6'3", 250 right now. He has the body type that suggests that he will easily be able to put on weight, and he could absolutely end up being an interior defensive lineman and a little bit more of a true nose tackle if they want to use him that way. Or he can be a defensive end, or heck, he can even be a stand-up edge. Right now, he's definitely his best whenever he's allowed to freely rush the passer in these really obvious passing downs. I'm talking, like 3rd and longs, stuff like that, stuff where he's freely just able to attack the passer as he pleases. I think he needs a little bit more development and refinement in really understanding how to stop the run. But I think this is a really, really good get for Miami, and I especially like his ceiling. I think a lot of it's just going to depend on how his body is able to shape out once he actually gets to Miami. And yes, he does plan on being a December 20th signee and enroll in January.
Well, it was interesting because as he's committing, Miami's wrapping up a visit with NC State defensive tackle CJ Clark, who Matt and I both believe will absolutely land with the Hurricanes out of the transfer portal. That might be your next guy, Stephen. I don't know if it's going to be David Stone. I don't think it's going to be LJ McCray. I think CJ Clark is going to be that guy. And man, you kind of get excited when you watch the clips that we have with the CJ Clark story that we have on the website also today. When you look at the clips that go with that story and you see him powering and manhandling Matt Lee back into the quarterback when Miami played NC State, we could use a little bit of that, to go with Ruben Bain and the other guys coming back. So that could be your guy. But there's a little subplot that's brewing behind the scenes here as we go into the final days and hours of recruiting, and that is the numbers game. And this is where Matt Shodell looks like a hero, because he's been yelling and screaming, for months that too many scholarships were being given to guys that weren't going to impact the team. And Miami's got a little bit of a numbers issue, in visits, because I'm not sure what the exact number is. We're not an accounting firm, but they are getting tight on official visits. So they haven't just been able to, like, they had one official visitor this past weekend. They're being very strategic with their official visits, and they'll have a bunch of them next weekend to use up their allotment for the year. But that's one aspect of it, and the other is scholarships. I mean, they don't have a lot of spots, and if guys are going to be brought in, somebody's going to probably have to leave here, and so they're juggling the current roster as well. You saw Colby Young go to the portal this week. Matt Lee went to the NFL. That opened up a slot that maybe they would have liked to keep. Colby Young was very unexpected going to the portal, but they need guys like Colby Young to leave if they are going to try to get better than Colby Young. And I think that we all have to accept the fact that even though we say, man, Colby Young, we thought he was one of the better receivers on Miami's team, and even though he struggled to get open at times and get off the line of scrimmage at times, he probably was one of the better receivers on Miami's team. But if Miami is going to take the next leap as a program and get into the upper echelon of college football and not just keep winning 5 and 7 games in seasons, they have to get better everywhere. And they need spots, and that's where Colby Young going into the portal is a positive thing. So we're going to have to watch the numbers here this week as we move forward in recruiting, and we will be doing so. And we'll be talking about that on this show all week long as we continue to assess where Miami is going with this recruiting effort. And so next weekend's going to be the big visit weekend. You got a lot of the commits that are going to be visiting, and the final group of key targets that the Miami staff feels have a high probability of committing will be on that visit list next weekend. All right, I'm going to move on in a moment, but I thought I would take time here right now and talk a little bit about CaneSport, which is your unquestioned holiday destination for every need that you could have for Miami Hurricanes gear for the holidays. Let's start out by taking a look at the new CaneSport.
Welcome to CaneSport. New store, new items, same great experience. Family owned and operated since 2010, CaneSport has the latest merchandise from the Miami Hurricanes, Miami Dolphins, Florida Panthers, Inter Miami CF, and more. Come visit us at our store in Davie on University Drive, just south of 595, or online at caneswear.com. CaneSport, the spot Miami fans shop.
We're talking T-shirts, jerseys, hats, polos, hoodies, decals, magnets, whatever you could possibly want, whether it's a stocking stuffer or just a pure great gift for maybe your kids, your loved one, a family member. CaneSport unquestionably will have you covered, and they have all sizes for men, women, kids, babies, and like I've told you many times this year, they will even have an outfit for your pet. You can't leave your pet out at Christmas, okay? When everybody goes to the tree, or Hanukkah, of course, and are exchanging gifts, and your dog is sitting there huffing and puffing, all excited at all the action going on around them, you can't leave them hanging, all right? You got to get them an outfit at CaneSport, right, Stephen? Can't leave
Absolutely you do. You think Rex wants to be left out of the festivities?
Yeah, so, the beauty about CaneSport is you can take care of everything all in one roof, and they even have Dolphins, Panthers, Inter Miami soccer gear as well. So stock on up for the holiday season at CaneSport. They're at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, right down the shopping plaza from where they were last year. They got a newer, bigger store that's really spectacular. Right next to La Spada's sub shop, by the way, best sub shop in South Florida if you want to get a nice big meaty sub so you can get a little fatter for the holidays as well, because that's kind of part of it. You got to gain weight during the holiday season. So 2655 South University Drive in Davie, or caneswear.com online. Make CaneSport your holiday destination for all your Miami Hurricanes gear and needs. All right, so one other recruiting story that we have on the website that you guys should check out today. We talked to a lot of the commits that were playing in state championship games this weekend. We had a really cool story with their reactions and stuff to their state championship experience. So make sure you check that out. But I would be remiss if we ended the show today without at least bringing up Canes basketball, okay, which absolutely laid an egg in the second half against Colorado yesterday at the Barclays Center. A team that not too long ago was in the top 10 and now is on a free fall and is being exposed. And, Matt, I'll go to you on this. I'm seeing a lot of things that I think Jim Larrañaga is going to have to change. Clearly, these guys are not meshing together the way as was intended when they, get in a little bit of a higher level of competition. They're having a lot of problems. They're turning the ball over. I'm seeing guys that are forgetting what made them good in the first place. Nigel Pack, you are one of the best shooters in NCAA basketball. Why are you trying to be Isaiah Wong here this year? That's the first question that I would ask. Norchat Omier, as great a player as he is, doesn't seem to be bringing the same energy that he did a year ago. Why is that? Does he miss Jordan Miller's help on the boards? For example, Wooga Poplar's ball handling continues to get exposed. Very good shooter, but struggles when he puts the ball on the floor at times. Maybe they need to try to get back to more of a shooting role for him as he keeps working on the ball handling aspects of it. And maybe he doesn't need to be worrying so much about going to the NBA after this season, focusing more on developing his game. And you could go on and on. I mean, the bench is not doing a great job. Bensley Joseph transitioning from being the sixth man to being the starter. How's that working out? Maybe he needs to go back to being the sixth man. Seems like he was a lot more effective in that role. They have a freshman, Keyshawn George, who the NBA scouts are drooling over, who's not really impacting the product very much right now. Maybe that's something that Jim Larrañaga has to look at. The point is, Larrañaga's got a lot on his plate here with ACC play coming up in a few weeks. Matt Shodell, is it too early to panic?
Well, I've been keeping notes because there's been a lot going on that you guys are talking about, so I'll go back and start at the beginning.
Oh, my God.
When the Earth was first created, it was a bubbling mass. No. So first of all, Stephen, I can't ever interrupt you because you just keep talking.
Wonder where I got that from.
So
I wonder, Gary, or should I interrupt some more?
So when you were talking about recruits' parents asking you to give their kids more stars, you're not answering the question correctly, which is I'm not in charge of that. The correct answer is what, Bobby Washington used to call me every week. Where's my fourth star? When am I getting my fourth star? And I would tell him the same thing every time. You have the wrong number. That's what I would tell him. No, I wouldn't tell him that. I said to Bobby, I said, listen, don't worry so much about stars. I said, these people don't know what they're doing. That's a secret. But I'm telling you, people out there, the people who give you these stars, I mean, yeah, is there a higher percentage of 4 and 5 stars that wind up being NFL players? Yes, because they're that much more talented. But for college players, 3 stars can be exceptional players, and sometimes they tend to work harder to prove people wrong. So that's my answer, not what you said. And then Gary, you were mentioning the roster numbers, and yes, I could take bows for days and days because you said how they're not going to worry about what do they have to worry about numbers? It'll all work out. No, it's not all going to work out. Okay, they currently
there's going to be some ruffled feathers, but it's going to work out. They will get 85 before the start of next season.
Well, then your definition of working out is different than mine because my definition of working out is you plan in advance, you set up the numbers, you have a roster balance from freshman to senior class at every position. They haven't done that, but whatever.
So right now, not to interrupt like Stephen, but or like Stephen's going to, but don't you need to be a little fluid? Like in the way things are right now, like you don't really know who you're going to be able to get, who's going to be available in the portal. Maybe they have a receiver, for example, that's just flat better than Colby Young, who's going to replace him now.
Great. So your theory is that Mario doesn't know what the hell's going on. He doesn't know who's going to be out there, and he's clueless until they pop into the portal. My theory is they've taken the wrong players. They're at 63. They got 28 commitments, right, Stephen? 28? Am I wrong? 26?
28. They're at 28 now with Jackson.
Right. So they're 28. They're going to take 5 or 10 more transfers. They're at 63 on their roster. By the time the next semester begins, they're going to have to drop another 10 to 15 players that have not already left for the pros, that have not already transferred out off this roster. It's not ideal. Anyway, the question about basketball, I'll get to that now. So, you change the lineup, do this. No, the fix is simple. It's not a personnel problem. This team is as talented as it was when it was a top 10 team. The problem with this team is culture, because they're seeing now what has been struggling at Duke's problem the last couple of years, which is you can sign all the 5 stars in the world you want, but if they're each playing for themselves to showcase themselves for the NBA as one and dones or because they're seniors, you do not have a team any longer, and you're not going to win games, and you're going to get blown out, and you're going to fall apart when things get tough in the second half against good teams. And that's what we've seen for the first time in the Larrañaga era, and I don't know how he's going to deal with it because he's never had this problem before. He's always had underachievers who work together, and they make each other better, and they've always understood that. But now, Nigel Pack has Anthony Walker disease. Every time he gets the ball, he's shooting it, driving it, and throwing up crazy shots. As much as I love Omier, he's not effective against bigger players, and they have no one helping him. Okay, it was clear as day in this game. He cannot guard bigger, stronger players in the box, and they need to double and make those guys throw the ball out. That's personnel, that's coaching. Wooga Poplar, ever since somebody mentioned him as a first-round NBA pick, he's gone into the toilet. A lot of sports is mental, and this is a mentally deficient team, and Larrañaga has to figure out with one of his crazy games, he does this nutsy stuff, and he's going to find a way, whether it's playing softball in the gym or some team building activity, and take a week off from practice and go on a retreat, to the Berkshires, which is where I like to go on my retreats. Whatever, he's going to find some way to get these guys together, and if that fails, then this team is not going to be good, and it's going to be an inconsistent team with very talented players that never came together, and that is torturous to watch, because it's one thing to watch Miami football and know they're not that good, and that they're going to struggle against better teams, and you're happy when they make a good game of it against the Florida State, or at least you should be happy about it. I know fans don't want to lose those games. But when you see a team that is a top 10 talent team, which is Miami basketball, it is, okay? It's a top 10 talent team, and you see them playing like this, it's painful to watch, quite frankly, because they're so much better than this. And the good news is it's early in the season. You can't panic. You just have to explain to the players that why they're doing badly is not because they are bad players. It's like when your son or daughter does something wrong, you don't say you're a bad person. You explain why the behavior is wrong, right? And that's what Jim Larrañaga has to do. Not say they're bad players, but say this is why we are playing badly, and explain to them why. And if they can actually process that correctly, I think they'll be fine. But it's not going to happen overnight. It's probably going to take another month and bleed into the ACC season. There's going to be some difficult early ACC games that they have to somehow scrape out and scrape by, make the tournament field, and then be playing their best, because they are playing probably the worst they can play right now against Kentucky, which, by the way, lost their next game against a bad team, and now against a Colorado team that was ranked but has struggled on its own accord, and they just Miami played probably the worst second half I've ever seen, yesterday.
Well, if it's going to change, this stuff is giving Jim Larrañaga ammunition. He can look at his guys and say, guys, you're doing it your way, and you're getting your rear ends kicked. You are not a good basketball team. We have all this basketball talent in this room, and we are not winning, and we are not looking very good. And now it's time to be different. Bensley, you're going back to coming off the bench. I'm just throwing out, possibilities. Nigel, you're going back to being one of the best shooters in the country. We're going to start running you off screens like we were last year. We're going to get you your shots. You are going to get back to doing what you do well. You are not going to the NBA, and you need to focus on being the best player you could be right now for this team. Wooga, you're one of the best shooters in the country. Same thing with you. We're going to start, freeing you up for your mid-range jump shots and your three-point shot. Stop worrying about putting the ball on the floor all the time to try to impress the pro scouts that are looking for it. You might need to keep working on it and come back next year, and it might take you one more year, just like it did for Isaiah Wong, who then did go and get drafted. Stop worrying about getting drafted this year and trying to show something that you're not ready to show. they definitely got to look at possible adjustments they can make to get bigger for rebounding. To me, that's Keyshawn George. Okay, he's a point guard at 6'8", but he's also a guy that could get in the paint when shots are going up and gives you another big body to help Norchad grab the ball. So I would make that tweak. I would put him in the starting lineup and get Bensley coming back off the bench as the sixth man. But Jim Larinaga obviously knows a heck of a lot more than I know, and he's going to have to weigh all these different things. But what's clear is what they are doing right now is not working. The chemistry is not there. They need to go back into the I'll tell you what, Matt. We're going to call Jim Larinaga later today, and we're going to tell him that he could borrow your lab, okay, for a couple days, and get in the lab and just watch some tape and figure out a solution to this mess, because they are not playing very well right now, and the clock is ticking towards heavy duty ACC play. So it'll be interesting to see how the basketball team evolves. I do think it'll get better, but it's going to take some real creative thinking and some changes by Larinaga to make that happen, in my opinion. We'll see how it goes. All right. Listen, if you like this show and you like our channel and you're on YouTube right now, hit your subscribe and like buttons. It does help us with the algorithms. If you're a big fan of the great work that Sytephen Wagner has done in his first year at CaneSport, help him get a raise. I'm going to show you how. Okay. We have a special offer for you guys. Okay. And it's got to be $1 at a time. So we need a lot of you guys to take advantage of this offer so that we can give Steven a raise here at the end of the year. So you pay $1 usually we have a $1 for the first month special. In honor of Steven and his magnificence, we're going to say $1 for 2 months here using the code Canes1. Steven, you're cheering. I see you cheering, but now you could cheer. Now I got the graphic off the screen. Nobody was seeing. I mentioned Steven and Ray, and he's like, yes. I need more money. I want more money. Anyway, your subscriptions allow all of us to do what we do every day. And if you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport, please head on over to our website. Take advantage of that special. Again, the code is Canes1, CANES, the number 1, and you'll get 2 months for $1 instead of the first month for $1. After those 2 months, you'll be on the regular monthly plan. If you want to switch to the annual plan, you can do that at any time. So come on over to CaneSport and join our community of fans. It's really a great group. Our message boards have been jumping. People really have a good time on there every day, and we would love for you to come over and be a part of it. So that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. Also, thank you guys so much for starting out your day with us once again. For Matt Shodell and Sytephen Wagner, I'm Gary Ferman. We will see you next time, everybody.